Chapter 26 of The Man with the Red Beard by David Whitelaw. This recording is in the public domain. Read by Marianne. Chapter 26 Face to Face. Afraid the rat. Sentimental. The disjointed words spoken in Russian came to me seemingly from a great distance, and for some moments the voice conveyed nothing to me. Then the purring soft words of the speaker came to me more clearly, and, recognizing them, I groaned in spirit. In spirit only, although I could well have found it in my heart to have groaned in very earnest, for I told myself that I was in the hands of my enemy, and likely to come to a speedy end. There was no government now to step between Felix Marazeff and his victim Samuel Mannering, as there had been in Moscow. My head ached abominably, and not my head alone, for every bone and muscle in my body was in sympathy with that member, and I felt as though I had been racked. The events of the afternoon crowded back on me in all their utter hopelessness. I lay still, arranging them, to the best of my poor brain, into some sort of sequence. I remembered the lunch, and the meeting with Marazeff, and the altered demeanour of Monsieur Bellas. Then had come the question of the newspaper cutting and the visit to the house. The man at work at the bench, too, came clearly to my recollection. The book of cuttings, the unprovoked attack, the chloroform. That had been as far as I could judge about 4 o'clock. This I felt must be the evening of the same day. I did not seem to have been unconscious long. The room was now in darkness, and as I lay there a clock in the neighbourhood chimed the hour of 9. Through the windows the sky still held the light of the afterglow, and below I could hear the cries of children still at play in the court, and through it all the mutterings of voices in the room. The speakers were evidently unaware that I had come to myself, and I blessed the thought that had prompted my stillness. My brain was rapidly clearing, and in a few moments the words came plainly to me, or as many of them to enable me to get the gist of what was said. Felix Marazeff was speaking. "You see, I happened to meet Draffo, the real Simon Draffo, in Moscow, night before the unfortunate raid." "The real Simon Draffo?" I had closed my eyes in order that I might hear the better, but now as the other man spoke I cautiously opened them. The men were sitting, as I had judged, by the window, Marazeff in a chair, the other on the edge of the bench, his head sharply silhouetted against the glow of the sky. I saw, as I had guessed, that Felix Marazeff's companion was my friend with the fair fringe of beard. Marazeff himself was sitting in the shadow, but the glow of his cigar as he drew in the smoke cast a devilish light over his hateful features. In the darkness of the room the effect was weird in the extreme. The features grew as it were out of nothing, shone for a moment in the red light, then again dissolved into the shadows. Yes, my dear Veo, the real Simon Draffo was, I should judge, less than 5 feet in height and bald as an egg. The speaker gave a little mirthless laugh. Our friend on the bed over there is an Adonis to poor Simon, rest his soul. Simon's, I mean. But a little note of sternness came into Marazeff's voice as he went on. "There is no question of buts, Veo. The quarrel is mine and mine only. I think I am competent to deal with the imitation Simon. Simon Draffo lies with our other comrades in that pit outside Moscow. The man who has taken his name lies on that bed. One is dead, and the other is damned near it." The conversation flagged a little after this comforting remark. The men had opened the window fully, and were enjoying the cool breeze which seemed to have sprung up after the heat of the day. It was strange to lie there waiting for the end, for not for one moment did I allow myself to enter the fool's paradise of thinking that Felix would have any mercy for me. I knew too much, and I had crossed his path too often. It all seemed so unreal that such things could be happening on a summer night in London. I tried to tell myself that not 100 yards away the streets were teeming with pleasure-seekers, that theatres were in full swing. I found it difficult of belief. From the open window came the sounds of the night, the bell of a bicycle, the cries of the paper boys, a distant barrel organ grinding out a popular tune. All this was real, familiar. The room I was in and the men talking there by the window seemed to be part of some strange dream. What, I wondered, would the paper boys be crying out in a day or two? Discovery of an unknown body in Soho. Police hunt for the assassins. Is it a secret society? What a haul for the papers! Perhaps Winson would be among the first to view the body of the unknown victim. My gruesome thoughts were interrupted by a movement at the window, and I felt that Marazeff had risen and was crossing the room towards me. I still acted unconsciousness, but I must have acted badly, for he laughed as he bent over me, and I could feel his warm breath in my face. So, Sammy, and what did I tell you about meddling in the affairs of the— He broke off suddenly. You will find, Mr. Mannering, that the affairs of Felix Merseth are equally dangerous, I am afraid. He turned to the man who was still sitting on the edge of the bench by the window. Light the lamp, Veo, he said. I want to have a look at this fellow. We are quite old friends, Sammy and I. A match spluttered, and I, knowing that further semblance of unconsciousness was futile, opened my eyes and looked around me. The sight of the curious sulphurous blue of the match sent my thoughts flying back to the night before. Better light the fire too, Monsieur Veo, I said. Our climate is deceptive in England here, and one is apt to get chill lying under gorse bushes after nightfall. It was a shot at random, prompted by the foreign matches the fellow used, and I suppose bravado had more to do with the little speech than anything else. For a moment a hard look came into the eyes of Felix Merseth, then the old bantering sneer came back. Mr. Mannering is, like all newspaper men, exceedingly well informed, he said, speaking between his teeth. Sufficiently well informed, Judas Merseth, I replied hotly, to stop your— He leant forward, and his cold, clammy hand was pressed over my mouth. Weak and bound as I was powerless to resist him, but I learnt, by the way he looked to see if his companion had heard what I said, the one weak spot in the armour of Felix Merseth. When he spoke again it was to the man who had lit the lamp. That will do, Veo. Go down to Mother Stepsky and get yourself a drink. Come back when Bellis comes in. The man spoken to, evidently accustomed to obey, left the room immediately without a glance towards the bed where I lay. He, at all events, took little interest in the man he had helped to truss up. And when he had gone, and not before his steps had reached the passage below us, Felix Merseth removed the hand that had come near stifling me, and drew up a chair to the side of the bed. For a hateful moment or two he sat there and regarded me with a smile, nodding his head slowly up and down. I am afraid, Mr. Mannering, that you are about to say something which, had Mr. Veo heard, might have been harmful to the power I have over these patriots. There was a sneer on the word. Also the term with which you prefixed my name is not one which I want advertised, however much you may think I deserve it. Perhaps, Mr. Mannering, you would like to hear all about it, and why he is here. I did not answer, and the purring cynical voice went on. Sulky, eh? Well, you've got to hear all about it whether you like it or not. You needn't worry about Hampstead. It's past 9 and Myra Ramsay will not wait. Your English climate, you know, Mr. Mannering, is deceptive after nightfall. I was stung into answering him. Is it not poor sport, Merseth, this baiting of a man you are afraid to face, unbound? The insult did not seem to touch the man by my bed. He took a cigarette from a richly ornamental case and lit it leisurely, emitting a cloud of smoke full in my face. I feel rather proud of my perception, Mannering, he began, and think I will tell you my story my own way. If at any point of it I should appear to be baiting, as you call it, please forgive me. A man can't change his ideas of humour at a moment's notice. You see, Simon Draffo, the real thing, that is, happens to be cast in a somewhat different mould from his illustrious imitator. Heaven knows you're no beauty, Sammy, but you can give poor Simon points. You see, when Dr. Mersden sent me word that Simon Draffo had escaped from prison and had visited him at Norwood, I knew that there was a screw loose somewhere, the reason being that I had happened to see Draffo shot dead. It was you yourself who gave me the clue as to who the impostor was. That was when I read that most able article in Monday's Mercury. Really, Mr. Mannering, you have a fluent style. The press will lose an ornament when you die. I had a watch put on a certain house in Hampstead after reading the article, well knowing that were things as I suspected, that house would prove an attraction sooner or later. It was sooner. Even then I was not entirely satisfied, for I could not understand how you could ever get out of Asinov's clutches. He gave me his word you would never leave his prison alive. To make sure, I arranged with our mutual friend Bellis that I should meet you to-day. He had his instructions what to do in case I decided to have you brought here. We arranged a signal, the vulgar one perhaps of not removing the band of my cigar. That simple action of mine conveyed a message to the rat that you were to be brought here by hook or by crook. Monsieur Bellis is to be congratulated on having done me a very good turn. Still I was silent. I had been listening, true, But into my mind had crept a memory of the envelope I had left with Myra. I think my silence robbed Merezeff of some of the fruits of his revenge, for when he spoke again a sharpness had come into his voice. "You are listening, I hope, Mr. Mannering. Believe me, it is important that you should do so." My answer must have surprised him, for it took the form of a loud burst of laughter that echoed round the walls of that quiet room. "You find the situation amusing?" he queried. "Somewhat," I answered. "The affair has its light side. You will find out in due course, even if do I judge your intentions toward me correctly? I am not there to enjoy the joke. It looks, Monsieur Merezeff, as though we were likely to take the last long journey of all, in close company." I looked at the man as I said this, and I could see that, for all his bravado, he was mystified at my remark. I was glad that I had made the remark to Veo that had showed him that his watching on the heath had not passed unnoticed. Evidently Merezeff was anxious to make out how much I really knew. He threw away the stub of his cigarette, and was lighting another, when the door opened and Veo and Bellis entered, the former callous and indifferent, the rat with a shuffling step and a look of shame on his face. It needed but one glance at the man to tell me that any wrong he had done me had been done against his will, that he had not acted freely in the matter, but the stronger will of Merezeff had bent the weaker one of Bellis to his bidding. I could not help wondering at, and almost admiring, the marvellous power that Felix Merezeff had over the group of revolutionaries into whose clutches I had fallen, and that at the same time he should be hand and glove with the government. I learnt later that it was this very duplicity which gave him his strength. What was sauce for the goose was sauce for the gander, and his information, when he chose to give it, made him as valuable to the Nihilists as to the officers of the Tsar. That there was an antagonism between Bellis and his chief was as apparent as that I was the cause of it. Anger showed in Merezeff's face, and in that of the other dull resentment, and I said that if ever man was piling up hatred for another, the rat was doing so for Felix Merezeff. Fear, and that alone, kept those long fingers from the throat of the man with the red beard. I lay still while these three men spoke together. I could not catch what they were saying, but their actions told me plainly that my unworthy self was the object of their discussion. I smiled a little, as I thought how Merezeff was rather on the horns of a dilemma. He could hardly leave me where I was if Bellis and Veo were to be with me. There was no doubt in my mind that he knew I was in possession of his secret, and that did the opportunity occur I would not hesitate to speak. It seemed to me, as I lay there and saw the three faces in the lamplight, that the pieces on the chessboard of Felix Merezeff's plans were, for the moment, a little awkwardly placed. It looked as though he were putting some proposition before the others, a proposition, by the way, which one of the men did not seem to take kindly at all. In Bellis's face there was active resistance. In Veo's I read that the whole affair for him held little interest. At last I saw Felix look at his watch, and he appeared to give in. He rose and buttoned up his coat, and picking up his hat from the bench, he came over to me. Behind the bantering tone he used I could read the man's anger. "I am afraid, Mr. Mannering," he said, "that there are a few difficulties in the programme I had mapped out for you. These two gentlemen here, or rather one of them, seem to have some insane objection to my ending my quarrel with you once and for all in the way I would like best." "It was a firing party last time, Felix Merezeff. I remember your amiable intention was—" Again the clammy hand was pressed over my mouth, and Merezeff turned to the others. "I will meet you men downstairs," he said. "I have a private word for this gentleman." As before, he was obeyed, and I felt sure that poor Bellis was glad to get out of the reach of my eye. And when they had closed the door, Felix took his hand from my mouth. "Can you wonder," he went on, "that I want to kill you? Few men cross the path of Felix Merezeff a second time. You have crossed it many times. I wanted to kill you as you lay there. It was Bellis who objected." "Monsieur Bellis is to be congratulated on having done me a very good turn," I said, echoing Felix's words. "There is a sense, I will admit, in what he says," Merezeff went on. "He points out that he is the tenant of this room, and as such is known to the landlord and many other people. He says that it would be awkward if your body were found here or near by. He was seen entering the house with you." I smiled up at my enemy. "It seems I am going to be as great a nuisance to you dead as I am alive," I said pleasantly. He made no answer to this, but moved towards the door. With the handle in his right hand, he turned. "You saw Miss Ramsay last night?" he said. "I hope for your own good that you told her nothing of—" "Your treachery?" I put in. My devotion to the Tsar," he went on, as though I had not interrupted him. I saw the advantage a lie would be to me. In less than 2 days Myra would open my envelope, and would act as she thought fit. "My business with Miss Ramsay," I said, "was private. You were not mentioned." I saw a wave of relief that passed over his face, but thinking that perhaps he might still have some doubts of me, I added, "You see, I did not think that I was suspected. I was to meet her to night, and had intended to tell her of you then. I avoided unpleasant topics, my first evening with her." "Quite a lover's meeting, if what Veo tells me is true." "Quite a lover's meeting, Felix Marazeff," I replied with a smile. "The lady in question is going to do me the honour of becoming my wife." He seemed about to speak, but did not. Instead, he blew out the lamp, and I heard him lock the door and withdraw the key when he left the room. Then his steps descended the stairs, there was a confusing murmur of voices, and I heard a little party whom I took to be Veo, Marazeff, and Bellis leave the house and walk away up the paved court. End of chapter 26.